a very good afternoon to everyone who are joining us here on Zoom, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. Welcome to the I Am Fat for Growth program, the Growth Watch Month Forum series. My name is Jalisa Sanjana and I am your host for this forum series. So before we kickstart our session here today, once again, I would like to welcome you. Do take your time, sit back, relax, and join us on this Sunday. And if at all you have any questions throughout the session, well, scan the QR code or join us on slido.com and enter the code I am fat to send in your questions. Our technical team will also be dropping you the instructions in the Zoom chat box and in the comments section for Facebook as well as YouTube users. So now, ladies and gentlemen, for your information, the I Am Fat program was launched in 2012 by the Malaysian Pediatric Association, also known as MPA, focusing on healthcare professionals and parents in optimizing children's growth. As you have already watched the video earlier, we would also like to share the good news with you that I Am Fat has recently launched the Growth Watch Month to raise awareness on the importance of good growth for children and adolescents to prevent stunting. So now we would also like to warmly welcome all of you parents to join us in this forum. And of course, this is the second forum in the series, and we will be discussing on the theme of high hopes, tall dreams in nurturing growth through the teenage years. And today with me, we have our experts from I Am Fat who will be here on this platform. This time around, we have the Associate Professor Azriyanti Anwarzaini, Dr. Tiaga Nadarajau, as well as Ms. Koo and Joe, who will be joining me on this session. So to give you a little bit of the introduction of our I Am Fat experts who will be here today with us, so we will start off with the Associate Professor Azriyanti Anwarzaini. All right, so she is the member of the I Am Fat expert panel since 2017, the consultant pediatrician and consultant pediatric endocrinologist at the University Malaya Medical Center, as well as the University Malaya Specialist Center. All right, and next up, we also have Dr. Tiaga Nadaraja. He is the member of the I Am Fat expert panel and the head of Department of the Pediatrics at Hospital Sultana Bahia, and he's also the state consultant for the pediatric services. So I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, you are in safe hands throughout this entire forum. And of course, last but not least, we have Ms. Koon Anjo. She is the member of the I Am Fat expert panel, the senior chief dietitian from Hospital Lam Wah E from Penang. And she's also on this platform. So once again, if at all you have any questions for us, or perhaps you would want them to enlighten you further on the topics, feel free to drop it over via Slido, and we would have our Q&A session as well. All right, so before I take more of your time, I would like to bring our experts over onto this forum and to welcome all of them. So over to Professor Azriyanti, Dr. Tiaga, as well as Ms. Koo, a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jalisa. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jalisa.
All right. Okay. So now, without further ado, I'm sure most of you are also very curious to know what exactly is this growth program that we're talking about from I Am Fat. And I think the best person to give you a proper picture, or rather a clearer picture on what exactly does this program do, I think the best person for me to ask this question to would, of course, be Dr. Tiaga. All right. So, Dr. Tiaga, maybe you could take a moment to enlighten us, all here about what is I Am Fat all about.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Jalisa. So, I Am Fat is basically an acronym for Identification and Management of Feeding Difficulties in Children. It started way back in 2012 by a group of pediatricians, and I was fortunately or unfortunately involved in this group from the beginning. And Prof. Yanti is smiling because she was also involved from the beginning. So our main aim was when we realized that many parents are not aware of optimal nutrition for children, and as such, our children are lagging behind in their growth. That is when this group of pediatricians, with some external international collaboration, we formed this panel of experts so that we have various programs to educate the public, not only the public and also the healthcare professionals, to identify feeding issues early and to intervene so that we get to achieve the optimal growth in children. And we have so far moved on to even dealing with adolescents. And I think if the public, they wish to get more information, they can always visit this website, which is mentioned there in these slides. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Doc. So, Doc, I just want to also go into this one topic. Yeah, let's say, for example, if parents, if they are looking to seek help for any concerns about their adolescents' nutrient or perhaps their growth, so IMFAT comes in for that as well. How can they directly seek for help?
Yeah, just thank you, Mr. Lisa. Just like as I mentioned that from dealing with only purely children, we have also moved on to addressing the issue of nutrition and growth in adolescents. So if a parent suspects that their teen is facing growth issue, it is best to bring the teen to their existing physician who may already have a record of their growth for evaluation. So the physician may have some growth chart and weight chart with them. And based on that, the physician can advise the parents on how to go about it, whether the teenager is falling below the optimal height and weight or not. Alternatively, there are currently over more than 200 participating IMFAT panel clinics all over Malaysia that parents can go to at any time of the year to get their teens evaluated as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor. And I think on that note, that's exactly the reason why we're here on this platform as well. So moving forward now that we have a better understanding of what IMFAT is all about, I think we will now dive into our topic for today. All right, so our panel, I hope you're all ready for our topic that we would like to discuss on today. So the very first question that I would like to ask is, of course, to Dr. Tiaga. So Dr. Tiaga, you see, whenever we talk about adolescents, a lot of us are aware and some of us perhaps are, you have the rough idea of what exactly we mean by adolescents. But can you also please explain to us, especially to the audience, who exactly are adolescents and why is there this concern about nutrient in adolescents or teenagers? And are they actually getting enough nutrients? So maybe you could enlighten us on this.
When we use the term adolescence in a medical ground, we are referring to those between the age of 10 to 19 years old. This is as per World Health Organization definition. But basically, we are talking about teenagers. In a common layman's term of the teenagers, we are referring those between 13 to 19. So any children beyond the age of 10 up to 19, they are considered as adolescents or teenagers. And as we know, this is a very challenging period, not only for parents, but teenagers themselves, because they undergo a very rapid physical and psychological changes. And among the behavior changes is their eating habits. And their eating habits is really very erratic, and they often indulge in food which gives them instant gratification. So if you look at this particular slides, which is the National Health and Mobility Survey done in 2022, it clearly shows that if I can focus on, say, for example, how many teenagers are actually consuming enough fruits and vegetables, 4 in 5, meaning we're talking about 80% of them do not consume enough fruits and vegetables, which are very essential for their growth. And there are also many who do not have active participation in physical activity. For example, 80% of teenagers are inactive, very much sedentary lifestyle, and many consume carbonated soft drinks, and at least 10% of them consume fast food. So we look at it, generally, the teenagers are not, either their knowledge on food is not good enough, or the parents are not guiding them enough to consume appropriate nutritious meals to optimize their growth, especially their height. So this is the main issue we have. Even though we often focus on very young children, teenagers are also facing the same situation. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Doctor. In fact, I think this chart that you have actually shared with us is actually a very clear picture for us to also understand exactly where the problem actually lies. But on this same topic, I'm also very curious to know on this, since there is a serious concern about stunting, underweight, and undernutrition among teenagers in Malaysia per se. But despite us being, I would say, a developing country, why are we still encountering these sort of nutritional issues? I can understand from the point that you had mentioned that a lot of them lack the knowledge of understanding it, or perhaps we can also say it could be the environment, and they're not very aware of how important vegetables or fruits are because they're still at that stage in life. But as a Malaysian, of course, and also because we are a developing country, how is it that these kind of things are still something that we all face? Maybe you could enlighten us on that.
As you rightly pointed out, we are developing countries. We probably shouldn't be facing this much of problem with so-called stunting and growth failure in children. But if you look at this particular slide, I think the years are missing. The first column is referring to 2012, next is 2017, and the last column 2022. If you focus on the nutritional status, if you look at it, although the stunting appears to be dropping from 10.4% in 2012 until now is 6.8%. But if you look at it, they're getting more and more thinner. Okay. Kids are very much conscious about their body image. Nobody wants to put on weight, although we are also champion in overweight and obesity among teenagers. As you see that the last row, which shows that obesity is increasing, overweight is also increasing. So we are actually like a double burden, right? We have one end, you have very thin kids and young people, and the other end, we have overweight and obesity. So this clearly tells us that there is something not right with the kind of food they are consuming. I would say that in Malaysia, especially, the role modeling is also very poor. Many parents do not consume enough vegetables. Many parents do indulge in fast food. So I would say it is mainly knowledge. One is knowledge of parents and also the teenagers. And as such, the teenagers, as I just mentioned, that they want instant gratification of everything, including food. So whichever is fast, whichever they can grab on the way, they just grab it fast food and a drive-through, that kind of meals which is easily available to them. So one is knowledge, two is availability, easy availability. So these are the areas we need to focus to educate both the parents and also the teenagers. Thank you.
Okay, a very, very good point, in fact, Doc. In fact, when we talk about a developing country, it's also about how easily accessible food is around us. If, let's say, we were to step out of our homes and if you are hungry, the faster you get the meal, we are not going to be too concerned over the nutritional benefits or vegetables to it. So thank you for answering that question. And now I would like to divert it a little bit onto touching on this topic of genetics. So this question goes to Professor Azriyanti. So I think I've also read this somewhere, and in fact, it's also you could read up on articles on this where it says that the adult height is genetically determined. So sometimes, let's say, if, for example, if you were to look into Japan, perhaps, you could also see quite a number of apparently quite tall now, but based on their ancestors, they were much shorter. So this is something I think a layperson, most of us are also quite curious about. So how important do you think nutrition is compared to genetics or other growth factors? So over to you, Professor.
It's a fantastic question, Jalisa. I think I'm sure a majority of us probably think the same thing. Nowadays we've got lots of Korean sort of like influence and things. Later, maybe Dr. Tiaga as well as Miss Koo, you can always drop in and just join in the discussion. Literally we know that genetic plays some point in terms of height, final height, what we call the final height in children. Okay, and we look at our parents, we look at our dad, we look at our mom, and then we tend to say that, okay, since our mom is slightly shorter, we anticipate somehow our children to be around that height, And in medical terms or in a medical fraternity, we actually have a special calculator for that. So we calculate the mother and the father's height for us to be able to predict the children's height. Okay, now, we want our children to be taller. You agree with us? Jalisa, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. I think even girls, by the time you're 18, they are used to walking about with heels as well.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because height plays a very important factor in terms of psychosocial confidence and also self-esteem. So we want our generation to be taller. We do not want our generation to be shorter than our grandparents and our parents and our grandparents. Like you have clearly mentioned about the Korean and Japanese population. It is actually a fantastic finding. We got to know about this data back since in 2016, a fantastic paper that was published in one of the eLife, quite a good established journal, looking at 100 years worth of data and over 1,500 population across the world. So you can imagine how big that data is. And they look across 100 years. And they have shown that the Korean and Japanese actually grew 20 centimeter in height, especially among the women, the ladies. Oh my goodness. I was like, oh my God. They used to be 140s. Now they're 160s, 170s. Fantastic, isn't it? So now, what does that give us? What's the impact behind this data actually? So it means that it says it does mention literally, generally giving us that idea. Genetic is very important. However, whatever goes around us, nutrition, environment, happy family, good food and things like that, actually plays a huge role, because the report says the contribution to this extra gain of height among this population, Korean, Japanese, the Saudis, and the Iranians, they're very tall, is because of their public health and their resources to good food, good nutrition, and good health. So there you go, not just genetic. So please, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding to say, never mind lah, my mom is short, that's fine. I'm okay if I'm short as well. So no, we need to make sure that our children grow taller, and there's lots of other important factors to help them grow.
Okay, a very positive reply on that as well. Yeah, let's not look into genetics and sit back and just take it as that's it for us. It goes without saying, but no, it actually is in your hands as well. Yeah. All right. So thank you, Prof.
Miss Jelisa. In
Yes.
fact, with what Prof Yanti said, they always say that the mom is short, dad is short. In fact, in my setup, most of the time they blame the father to be short. That is why the child is short.
I actually would love to go on that topic, in fact, but because we have viewers today, Doc and Professor, I think we will not go further into that.
Definitely. We can go on and on, please.
Yes. All right. So once again, to all of our viewers who are here today on this platform, we hope you're going to join us here on this Sunday. If you have any questions for us, or perhaps you like the topic that we're talking about and you want to know more, drop it over into Slido. We will be taking in your questions during our Q&A session. Okay, so now we are going to move over to Miss Koo. Miss Koo, how are you doing?
I'm fine, very good. Thank you, Jalisha.
All right. So Miss Koo, since we are on this topic right now, so as a dietitian, we would also like to hear it from your point of view. Could you advise us on how our nutritional requirements can change from a young child to an adolescent? How does that work?
Yeah, of course, the most important nutrients that we're talking about is the calorie, which is the energy requirement for the adolescent. As you can see from the slides here, the RNI Malaysia showing that the adolescent energy requirement is much higher as compared to the children, younger children. So if let's look at the difference between the girls and boys requirement is higher. Okay, and then if they are more active in terms of their physical activities, or they involve in sports, they need very high calorie, as high as up to nearly 2,600 or even nearly 3,000 calories. As for protein, also one of the important nutrients that I would like to share, that you can see that the requirement also is pretty high in the adolescent years. As you can see, is almost like 20, even up to about 50 to 60 grams per day. Yeah.
Okay, a very clear chart. Thank you so much, Miss Koo, on that. And also, I think for our parents who are watching this right now, perhaps if you want to screenshot this chart, I think it's a very good one here to also show you exactly the age and the weight and the protein intake and all of these numbers over here. So thank you, Miss Koo, on this. And now back to Professor Azrianti. Yeah. This is another question which I think a lot of us are curious about as well. Does puberty affect growth? How is this different from like growth during primary school years? How do you think this can actually, affect growth in general? Does puberty actually make a difference out of that?
Yes. Okay. That is completely very true indeed.
Mhm.
And you know, among us, the pediatricians, pediatric endocrinologists, when we talk about growth, we almost always, 100% will definitely look into the children's puberty. Meaning for girls, we have to examine the breasts, yep, and also their
Mhm.
sexual characteristics. And for boys, we have to measure their testicular volume. Okay, so that's a little bit tricky because at home, parents tend to look at girls, and they can roughly have some idea, you know, breast development kind of thing, especially for the mothers. But for boys, literally, I don't think even that, Dr. Tiaga, I don't think you even ever examine your son's testicular volume, okay? Because it is quite very specific towards a pediatric sort of like a sort of medical examination. Okay, as you can see from that graph there, it's a beautiful graph to show that our growth rate changes from childhood years, you know, from baby to infants to a childhood year. And then suddenly you can see a spurt there after the age of 10. There's a spurt there, you know, and it comes down back again after the end of puberty. So now the difference between a primary school and secondary school, it's actually quite obvious. In primary school, majority of the parents will notice that they have grown very slowly as compared to when they used to do it before the age of 3, 4, 5 years old. Okay, then they suddenly come in at 7, 8 years old. My daughter is not growing that well. It is anticipated, but it is very important for you to, for the parents to be aware of this. And then suddenly when they go into teenage years, they change, and then suddenly they become tall. All right. Now, let me just, I think the easiest way for me to describe and illustrate this is through myth, okay, and truth, okay? So there's a lot of myths saying that, that's okay, my girl will definitely grow taller once they have started secondary school, or sometimes they even say they will grow taller after they have periods, okay?
Mhm.
So I really need to really stress this point that girls, they start early. They usually start after the age of 9 years old, okay? And after 9, meaning they start with breast development. And then after that, they slowly progresses towards menarche, means their first period, around the age of 11 to 12 years old. So between 9 to 11 and 12, that's about 2.5 years to 3 years, okay? Right. If let's say, once they have started menarche, they don't actually grow. So if you look at that graph there, you can see the green arrow there. That is where the growth is once they've started menarche. After menarche, by scientific calculation, they have only about 3 to 5 centimeters to grow. So meaning that if parents bring their girls too late, let's say, hey, I've got so many girls with coming into my clinic. A 13-year-old girl coming in, doctor, I've noticed my girl did not, continue to grow. My first question will be, when was her period? When did she first get her period? If they say, oh, she had her period at the age of 11 years old, I would probably have to say, I'm really sorry, there's nothing much that we can do in terms of
Okay.
mitigation. Okay? So we really need to focus on that and bring them as early as possible. Same goes to the boys. The common myth for the boys is that, never mind, boys can grow until 18 years old. Okay?
Yep.
So
A lot of them have that kind of a concept, and that's why they just leave it as it is and wait. Yeah.
And then suddenly brought in at the age of 14 years old, doctor, my son is not growing as like, any other boys in school, and he's now the shortest. It's because that he has completed. So meaning that this graph is showing where we want the normal, or to say the usual kind of growth rate. As you can see, the blue point ends at 18 or 17 years old. But there are variation. There are some boys and girls starts early. If they start early, they stop early. If they start late, they usually can grow a little bit taller, and they usually stops later. Okay, so the trick point here is time and vigilance, and parents has to be very careful. In boys, once they have started to have mustache and then change in voice, that is literally slightly too late for any medication. I'm not talking about nutrition. Nutrition goes all the way. Ms. will explain that later. But in terms of medication, in terms of therapy, treatment, you need to bring them early.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. So the good understanding out of this is that time and exactly how, the growth of your child is. If it's a girl, you could perhaps tell from the time, they have their menses. And of course, for boys, it's also the other factors that come into play, right? Okay, thank you, Prof. So back to Miss Koo. Miss Koo, since you gave us a very good chart earlier of the amount of protein and based on the age of your child as well. So how can we actually ensure our adolescents are taking a well-balanced diet. So again, as what Dr. Tiaga had said, sometimes it's the environment, it's the role modeling, it's all the other things as well. But how, as parents, can they ensure that the adolescents are taking a well-balanced diet? So over to you, Ms. Koo.
Thank you, Jalisha. Let's look at the Malaysia Healthy Plate with the concept of the quarter half, or is popularly known as suku separuh. So usually this is a very good guide to for parents as well as teachers to tell the adolescents on the healthy and balanced diet. So you can see that if we look at the plate size, then you have a quarter of your plate with a carbohydrate source, for example, like rice, noodles, bread, etc. And then quarter of the plate consists of protein sources like fish, poultry, meat, legumes, and also eggs. And half of the plate should comes from the vitamins, mineral sources, rich fruits like different kinds of vegetables and also fruits. Other than that, it's important also to note that dairy products and also soy products and other high calcium foods must be also emphasized in the Malaysians adolescents diet, because of it actually helps to promote growth. So high calcium food should be part of the main meals as well as for the snacks. Okay, so this is a very simple guide for parents. So when they serve food and prepare meals for the family and the children with adolescent age, this will be the great guide and easy to implement.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Koo, on this. Okay, Ms. Koo, I think we have a question actually from one of the viewers, and I think this is also a question a lot of parents are also quite curious about. Now that we understand the healthy plate of how Malaysians should go about it, when we talk about milk, yeah, per se, do you think like the best time to drink milk, is it in the morning or is it at night?
Well, there is no special time to drink milk either in the morning or night. Okay, usually requirement will be 2 servings of high calcium products, can be from milk, soy milk, etc. So it can be part of the main meal, usually breakfast, because it's something that grab and go kind of thing, easy. And then could be a nightcap or even as a snack, tea time drink, yeah, for the kids.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Ms. Koo, on answering this a very straightforward question. I think this is a genuine question of how parents sometimes do not know, because they have all these different assumptions and myths about drinking it in the morning or at night. So thank you, Ms. Koo. Okay, so now back.
Jalisa?
Yeah.
Just topping up on what Ms. Koo have mentioned, it's fantastic for this parent to ask about drinking milk morning or night. The thing about our Malaysian children, we don't drink milk, isn't it? Our children don't like milk. There's some
once they reach a certain age, it becomes something where you only take it if you're forced. Yeah,
that's right. And even in NHMS, I think Dr. Tiaga, you probably have missed that one. In I think, if I'm not mistaken, my student was just presenting this morning in the NHMS data 2017. 3 out of 4 of our adolescent does not drink milk. 3 out of 4. It's a major concern. Our Malaysian children did not drink milk. So it's a good thing that at least this parent is wanting to know about when to drink milk at least. But I usually would advise just drink milk, morning, tengah hari, petang.
All right, great advice on that. Thank you, Ms. Koo, as well as Professor. Okay, so Professor Azrianti, we have another question which is going to be a very, I would say, quite a general question. But again, I think a lot of us are also very curious to know based on what you had presented to us earlier. So as parents, how could they identify the other problems that can be associated with stunted growth in teenagers? Are there any other identified problems to it, as well as any other solutions other than growth hormones?
Okay, let me answer the first one first, the first part. Yes. Okay, so stunting of growth is actually very important, and parents need to detect this very early. So the easiest way to do it is to compare. Okay. Compare with siblings, compare with friends in school, compare with cousins, compare with whoever that you have around you. Your first thing is always comparing. And if you do feel that your child is a little bit shorter, always trust your instinct. Something is not quite right, always trust your instinct. I totally rely on parents' instinct. And you can always go to see any of the doctors. We've got those panel doctors, any of the pediatrician. They can actually help you to see whether if you have any, serious pathological, what we call the pathological serious concern. But remember, by just measuring one time, we cannot identify, oh, okay, this is short, this is a problem, let's do something about it. It's usually a serial kind of measurement, and I'm pretty sure majority of our parents, even I remember my dad always, measure ourselves, cupboard and walls or something like that. I think that's a good way to do it, the good way to start. But just to remind everyone, if you want to measure your children at home against the wall, make sure you use something like a cardboard, the one that has what we call the 90 degrees cardboard, like a cornflakes box, something like that, for you to measure accurately, rather than using a paper, then it becomes like this or like that. Okay, so use a quite an accurate meter. Yeah, accurate measurement. Yeah.
Okay, I think the very typical Malaysian home is that you would always see the markings on the walls or on the wardrobes. And I think even kids enjoy doing this among siblings to see who is taller, right?
Yes, that's
okay.
the way to go. On the second part of the question, you asked me about growth hormone, right? So fantastic that we are now increasing that awareness towards the public as well, because we've done lots of work on this, trying to also inform that there are treatment should there be a pathological growth, especially in terms of children who was born small for gestational age, meaning that when they are born, they are only about less than 2.5 kilogram. So if they tend to be short, okay, they are eligible for, after extensive investigation, some of these children are eligible for growth hormone. Turner syndromes, the girls who are really short, and also for those who have growth hormone deficiency. Now, when you ask me, is there any other solution? I would say yes, but it will be, more of, you need to come and discuss this with the pediatric endocrinologist, and it has to be case-to-case basis. So it is a little bit more complex to cover during this time.
Okay, all right. A bit tricky on that part.
Yes, a bit tricky, but that is a solution.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, so now back to Miss Koo. Miss Koo, so since we also took on the question earlier about milk, there's another data which we have from NHMS that shows that adolescents do not consume enough fruits and vegetables as well. And, we understand that sometimes, you have your picky eaters and all of that. So how can we actually help teens grow, especially sometimes when they are fussy food eaters? So Miss Koo?
Thank you, Jalisha. This is a very good question. A lot of time, children, they have their role models either from the parents. So first of all, I would urge parents to eat balancedly, following the suku separuh that I showed just now. Fruit and vegetables should be part of the daily diet. So it's important for the parents to prepare and also make sure that every meals there are fruit and vegetables available. And of course, we do have fussy eaters, maybe they have been fussy since a very young age. So it's important to serve different types of vegetables. If they really do not like green vegetables, maybe start with something else, we have other vegetables available. So it's important to give whatever that they can accept, then slowly also share with them the importance of taking other types of vegetables to get a balanced nutrition. Yeah.
All right. Okay, Ms. Koo. So I'm just going to continue from here on with this same question. In fact, so sometimes, there are challenges in feeding the teenagers the optimal nutrition, as you had mentioned earlier. So how do you think would be the best way forward in terms of tackling this sort of challenges?
Yeah, of course, there are times they may not be taking enough nutrients from the regular diet that they're eating. So perhaps also there are available oral nutrition supplements that they can consider to actually take it as part of the nutrition in their diet.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Ms.
Lisa,
Koo, for giving us a very clear understanding of that. And of course, we also need to understand that, whatever that you try to put on a child's plate or adolescent's plate, you have to also ensure that the nutrients are right there. And it's not so much about them eating their 3 meals a day, but what exactly goes into that meals are also quite important. All right. So from here, I would also like to remind.
Lisa, can I add on a bit?
Yes, please.
Sure. That's like what Ms. Koo was mentioning about. One of the strategy I use with teenagers who are fussy eaters, although they've been fussy from young, is that almost all teenagers are concerned about their height. something which really upsets them if they are not tall enough. So I use that as a motivation to them. So I tell them that, look, there are two things now. One is your favorite food and things which you don't like, although it's nutritious, against your height. So I throw it on the table and tell them, you choose what you want. Then they say, look, I want to grow taller. Then indirectly I tell them this is probably one of the best way to optimize their nutrition. So very often, at least about 70% of them actually start eating whatever is nutritious. So because their target is, their motivation is, I want to become taller.
Agree.
So that's one strategy I often use with young people. Thank you.
I do the same. I tell them all the time. I tell them, look, if you want to grow taller, sleep early. So that's what we have not mentioned quite yet as yet. Sleep early, eat well, and then do what we call this physical activity against gravity. So meaning jumping, skipping, walking around. That will definitely help them to grow taller. Not just sit down and then watch TV or play their PlayStation, which only grows their thumb, I told them.
That's a very good way to put it, yeah. This activities of, constantly being on your gadgets, it's only going to grow your thumbs.
Exactly, only the thumbs and the hands. I say, if one says, you go and go ahead, go back home and jump, start jumping.
All right, so Prof, since you had brought up this topic about the activities as well as the sleeping pattern, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on that for us as well. That's actually a very good point, since Ms. Koo had covered with us the nutritional factors out of it and what they consume. So what about the activities, like as you had mentioned? Maybe you can just share with us a bit on that.
So it's just that I didn't prepare for of course I didn't prepare for the slides, so for you to show, because this is usually slides that I discuss together with my junior doctors as well as my medical fraternity. So when I tell them to remind our children in regards to sleeping, it's because sleep, this is when their growth hormone comes out and play. Okay. So if they sleep very well, they sleep early, meaning by the time 9 o'clock at night, they go to sleep. So they have got good enough, nearly 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Then the growth hormone comes out at their deeper sleep, means that their REM, when they go into really deep sleep, that's when the growth hormone starts to come out and pick up. Okay. So let's say they sleep at 3 o'clock or 1 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, then they have to start to get up and then start to prepare to school and what so not. They have only maybe one spike of growth hormone instead of 2 or 3 spikes as compared to children who sleep earlier. Okay, so that's the trick. And also, we have already shown, there's lots of papers that have shown that children who does a lot of exercises, their growth hormone tends to pick up a lot more time, because exercise is a stress. When the body feels that stress, growth hormone is one of the hormone that helps the body to compensate that stress, and they become taller because of that.
Okay, excellent. I think I really like the direction of how we're taking this topic here today, because we have covered, all angles of it, including the sleep pattern, as how you had mentioned. And of course, Ms. Koo gave us a very clear example of how the nutrients would, play a very important role as well. So now I would also like to hear it from Dr. Tiaga this time. Okay, so, we have covered quite a number of things here today, and I think this is excellent, the flow of how we have this entire session going. So, Dr. Tiaga, maybe we can touch on I am fat per se, as well as MPA. What exactly are the messages that you would like to send out to parents as well as adolescents out there? Since you're quite good when it comes to advising them and giving them the idea of, putting the factor of wanting to grow taller and eating well. So what do you think your message would be?
Okay.
Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you. Before I answer that, I also want to add on to what Dr. Yanti has said that about sleeping. Yeah. So something we call it sleep hygiene, poor sleep hygiene among teenagers. Many teenagers will sleep with their lights on. When we sleep, you must sleep in pitch darkness. That is when your brain actually starts functioning well. Even though your eyes are closed, the brain still perceives the lights, literally. So you must advise them to sleep in dark. So that actually optimizes all your good sleep pattern, all their search of growth hormone and all that. So going back to the question you asked about what are the messages from IMFAT and also Malaysian Pediatric Association to parents and adolescents out there. So just like younger kids, teenagers are also facing major issues with stunting and especially with the weight and also the height. And often many parents feel that if you have not optimized their height by the time they reach about, say, 5-6 years old, they have lost the battle, which is not true, because we still have this golden opportunity during the adolescent age, like what Prof. Yanti was showing about the growth spurts, if you can focus more on the nutrition, then you still have an opportunity, golden opportunity. It's like a second window for you to optimize their final growth. So it's more important for parents now to realize that it is not just nutrition for young kids, but also for the teenagers. So this is a message which IMFAT wants to put it out in, because if we're going to talk about the consequences of stunting among teenagers and adults, it's another huge discussion, because they have got physical, mental, and various psychosocial issues related to stunting. So it is important to tell the parents that you still have a golden opportunity to achieve optimal height in teenagers if you focus on their nutrition. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. And nutrition, of course, this is the focus of today's forum discussion, but also you had mentioned the sleep pattern earlier and switching off all lights and sleeping. I think this point, even adults, we need this advice at times. Yeah, I would want to add on, because I still have the fear of sleeping, in pitch darkness at night. So yeah, very, very good a message and point. And thank you so much on your side for also sharing with us the message that IMFAT wants to share to parents out there. All right, so over to Professor. Professor, is there anything? Okay, we have got more questions actually coming in. Yeah, so I'm going to ask this next question over from our Q&A session, because we still have a couple of minutes. Okay, so over to Ms. Koo for this question. If my teenager is short, what supplements may help for this question?
Okay, thank you, Jalisha.
Yeah.
First of all, apart from supplements, we have to make sure that the kids are taking balanced nutrition, focusing on important nutrients. Just now I did mention about calorie, protein. So not to forget calcium, as well as the vitamin K2, iron, zinc, etc., which actually helps in improving on the growth. So after that, they have already tried their best in serving on the food that, they have been saying that, oh, I have been serving regular diets, but it's not really helpful. So also may consider oral nutrition supplements, which is balanced and also high in nutrition that optimize the height, can be part of the daily diet.
Okay, all right, Ms. Koo. So once again, we are now taking in more questions from our audience. And again, if you have just joined us, or perhaps you would want to ask us any questions to our experts over here, very easy. You just have to drop it over via Slido, and we'll be taking in as many questions as possible. So thank you, Ms. Koo, for answering us on that topic of supplements. So now moving over to the next question that we have here, which is based on what Dr. Azrianti had said. And this time she said that my daughter is 14 years old and she had her period at she has had her period at around 9 years old. Okay, so does it mean that nothing can be done to increase her height? So over to you, Professor Azrianti.
It's a very, very sensitive topic and also very sensitive question. And I have lots of parents coming in to my clinic for this particular matter. And I know it, although very, very difficult for me, and although how I really wish I could say I can do something about it, but in fact, once the children or once the girls have had menarche, after 1 year, their bones, what we call their bone age, their bones are literally closed. So meaning for them to grow taller, it would probably be impossible. So they might grow about like I mentioned earlier, about 3 to 5 centimeter after their last height at menarche. And after that, they would just plateau and stop growing almost eventually. So now remember, apart from height, we also take into a very strong and very heavy consideration in regards to their health and well-being. Okay, so meaning that although they have stopped growing in terms of their height, parents must make sure that they take care these children in terms of their nutrition, of course in terms of their diet, because we do not want them to grow fatter. Okay, once they are small, or if let's say, even if they are at 160, so that is a normal Malaysian. So yeah, I forgot to actually mention, to give some sort of like comparison. Malaysian is around 167 centimeter.
Okay.
And Malaysia, this is average. An average Malaysian woman is around 155 to 157 centimeter. Okay, so we want our girls, our daughters to be around that height. Okay, and of course, as tall as mom, that would be the best if they can actually achieve taller than mom, but at least as tall as mom, so that you don't see that much discrepancy. But if let's see, even if your daughter comes up to 155, although you want them to grow a little bit taller, but they've had periods at the age of 9 years old, they might not be able to grow taller. It's very important to maintain their nutrition so that they don't grow fatter. Because once they are fat, then it becomes, other health concern, diabetes, hypertension very early on in their life. So height is one matter, but general well-being is also something to really consider.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Professor. And I think we also appreciate your honesty out of this because, like you said, it is a very sensitive topic. And sometimes, yes, there's a lot of things that we want to do, but you have to look into the other factors as well, right? So thank you, Professor. Okay, so now we are going to take in another 2 more questions, or perhaps if we have more time, we'll try to squeeze in more. And again, if you have just joined us, you could drop in your questions via Slido. And also, we will try our level best to cover as much as we can. So over to the next question. And this time, it is about milk. So earlier, we had the conversation with Ms. Koo, and she had mentioned about milk consumption, whether it's daytime or night. We had a question earlier. But this time, the question is a bit different. It says that my daughter cannot take normal milk because she gets stomach problems. So are there any oral nutrition supplements that Ms. Koo has mentioned which is suitable for her, perhaps? So over to you, Ms. Koo.
Thank you, Jalisha. Of course, I'm not very sure because the stomach problems may be due to lactose intolerance. So if let's say all this while her daughter not able to take milk, perhaps may try other options which is low lactose. Okay, like yogurt and cheese actually high in calcium and also low in lactose, which also can be an alternative. As for the oral nutrition supplements in the market, usually the lactose is not that high. So it's quite, as a suitable supplements for the daughter as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I hope that over to our audience, okay, on that. Thank you, Ms. Koo, for this. So now moving over to the next question that we have here. And this time it says, Doctor, is there such a thing as prepubertal growth spurt? If the answer is yes, can doctor please elaborate the anticipated timing for boys? All right.
Thank you for that question. Just before I go on to that question, I think Dr. Tiaga and also Ms. Koo would probably agree with me. If your daughter have issues with taking normal milk, I think you need to see at least a pediatric gastroenterologist and get it sorted out, and also get an appropriate dietitian advice and follow up so that, we can help to ensure whatever alternative milk that they are taking is in conjunction or is in line with the nutritional requirement that they need. Because sometimes I've got children who comes in with oat milk, taking oat milk alone, or almond milk, which is a good alternative to the, the lactose milk, but then they not give enough nutrition. So you really need the dietitian to sit next to you and say, okay, you need to add on this, you need to add on that, so that it becomes a complete sort of like nutrition for that particular child.
Yeah, so it's safe to say that the experts sometimes can give you a better breakdown of that as compared to us reading it and taking it into our own hands and, like you said, changing it over to almond milk or any of that. All right. So over to the next question as we have.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No worries. I enjoy this.
I know we get quite sort of like carried on, especially we talk about this. Okay, so now there's not quite what we call the prepubertal growth spurt. Okay, so I've shown you the graph just now earlier on. We've shown you the graph. Even in fact, at the age of between just the prepubertal, what we call the prepubertal age for girls is between 8 to 9 to 10 years old. They usually dip a little bit, means they slow down first before they spurt. Same goes to boys. Between 11 to 12, they dip first, then only they spurt. Okay. However, we as pediatricians as well, we always need to be a bit more concerned in terms of this fast grower. Okay, or when we see prepubertal growth spurt, or seeing a child, like say for example at the age of 6 years old for boys, suddenly this boy is the tallest among in class. Okay, not quite fat but very tall. Suddenly this boy, at 6 years old, starting to shave, starting to have acne, this is clearly not quite right, because no normal boys would have any spurt before the age of 11 years old. Okay, so we really need to see this. If you're not sure, bring your child to see a doctor. Same goes to girls. If girls have breast before the age of 8, meaning breast development in girls at the age of 6 years old, 7 years old, this is also not normal. So you really need to see the doctors and get things sorted out first.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Prof. And now comes the final question for our Q&A session. And this time again, I think this leads back to Miss Koo. Do caffeinated drinks affect a kid's growth? Caffeinated drinks per se. So what is your take on this, Miss Koo?
Well, caffeinated drinks may not be just coffee. It can also comes from tea, soda, cola, etc. So I don't think there's a study. I'm not sure whether there's a study on caffeinated drinks that affects on kids' growth. But just now we did mention on the sleep hygiene. If let's say kids take too much of caffeinated drinks, then they may not be sleep early. That will actually cause the delay in their growth. Yeah, if they don't get enough sleep. Yeah.
Okay, so going back to sleep on this, yeah, Miss Koo? All right, so once again, to all of our viewers here.
Dr. Tiaga would be very good in answering this as well. Caffeinated drinks. I'm sure that your adolescents.
Yes, let's hear it from you, Dr. Tiaga, about caffeinated drinks.
Yeah.
They love all these Starbucks things. Oops, I'm not supposed to mention anything, but they like all these high-end coffees,
Yes.
They enjoy it because it's the trend, it's a fashion for them.
Yeah.
It's so it's like when they get together, where do they meet? Those days we meet outside the school compound. Now let's meet at certain places.
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
So they do say that one, it's expensive. Two, it doesn't, as Miss Koo has said, that it affects, especially when they take it late in the evening or night, it affects their sleep. So I usually tell them that avoid it. If at all you have to, you can take it occasionally, but try to take it daytime, not late at night.
Yes,
not late at night. Yep. I think I opened the forum with a very strong point to say that we are a developing country. On that note, on that question, I think it also comes with a lot of change being a developing country, to say that all these brands and all this access to different types of drinks are there. So yeah, it comes back to, the other factors that why adolescents are always thinking this is easily accessible, and why not add it into their routine as well, right?
That's right.
And I suppose peer pressure, looking at everybody trying out those kind of things. I guess at the end of the day, it's choices, right? We have to empower our children. What are the right choices, decision making, and then, choosing the right food for their health.
All right. So thank you, Professor, as well as Ms. Koo and Doctor on this question. So now moving over, we still have more time, a couple more minutes before we wrap things up. So once again, if you have just joined us on this platform, well, feel free to drop in your questions. We will be more than happy to have a discussion and also to answer all of your questions accordingly. So the next question here I have in the Q&A session comes from a parent. I'm looking at the question, and it says that my 17-year-old girl and 18-year-old boy are shorter than their parents. Are there any ways to improve height? And my 4-year-old boy also looks short. Okay, so it's a family of 3 kids, and yeah, the concern, of course, is the kids are a lot shorter than the parents. So any one of the experts would like to take this question?
It will definitely be me. I'll okay, so if a 17-year-old girl, I would have anticipated that they probably had their menses at the age of 13, 14 years old. So by this time, they are quite at the end of their height, what we target height. So if they are slightly shorter than the mother, that's not too bad. If they are way off, then probably a bit more concerning, but that's not much way to improve height. Same goes things to the boy. Usually boys are definitely taller than mother. If their father are really tall, then they can be slightly shorter than the father, but usually between the mother and the father's height. That is some average, sort of like a rough idea where the children should be. But at that age, 17 and 18, I think we need to be more focused about their general health, well-being, psychosocial health, rather than height, because it will probably be a bit more difficult to improve height at this age. And for that 4-year-old, that is a good time to start monitor. And then usually we say that the first a few years, 4, 5, 6 years old, you need to be able to see how they grow. And then by the time they're 7 years old, when they start to go to school, that's when the parents can easily compare. Oh, my child is actually the smallest in class. Once they are either the smallest or the tallest, you would probably need to discuss with your pediatrician.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Prof. And over onto that same note that you had mentioned about comparing as well, the next question that has come in here, it says from one of the viewers, my 4.5-year-old son looks smaller than his same age friends, and what can be done medically? So he eats well as he sleeps quite well. So we have ticked the boxes of a balanced diet as well as a sleep pattern. So what's your take on this, Prof?
Same thing, monitor. And then once you tend to see a similar trend, meaning that over 6 months, over 1 year, when they change, because this is literally the previous session, I believe, the young session. We're talking about teenagers, but it's good for parents to track them very early. So as soon as you feel that by the time they go to school, you notice that they are way smaller than the children, bring in as soon as possible. Even at the age at 4.5 years old, if you're worried, speak to your pediatrician and they can start monitoring early.
Okay, very well said. Prof, thank you so much. All right, so this wraps up our Q&A session now, ladies and gentlemen. And again, we would also like to thank each and every one of you for dropping in your questions, for participating on our forum session. So before I bid farewell to our experts, of course, today's discussion was a very, very beneficial one, a very fruitful one, because we covered quite a number of different factors as well when we refer to this topic. So personally, I would like to thank Professor as well as Dr. Tiaga and Ms. Koo for this. So before we bid farewell, I would also like to hear it once again from our speakers. What would your advice be to parents who have kids in adolescent age group? So maybe we can start off with Ms. Koo.
Thank you. I would like to urge parents to be a good role model, as well as so that to serve the right balanced diet to the kids, like following the Malaysia Healthy Plate, the suku separuh plate that I have shown just now.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Koo. And of course, we also appreciate all of your slides. And I hope the parents have also screenshotted on that as well. So over to you, Professor Dr. Azriyanti.
Okay.
Any last words for our parents?
I think my message remains the same. Compare early, detect early, bring them to see the doctors early so that they can help to track way before they start their puberty. That would definitely be very helpful in terms of us to help to manage them as well. Focus on good diet, good sleep, good exercise, and I believe to trust your instinct as parents. If you know that something is not right, despite other people saying, yeah, it's okay lah, they will grow later, that kind of advice, general advice. If you think that something is wrong, trust your instinct. Go and see the doctor.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor. And of course, to Dr. Tiaga, we would also like to hear it from you once again. And I know you mentioned earlier the clear message of what IMFET is trying to do out of this entire platform as well. So what is your advice or any last words for our viewers?
My advice is going by the theme of our forum today, that is high hopes, tall dreams. Although whenever you use the term high hopes, we always have this negative connotation. But here I'd like to reiterate that parents can have high hopes when it comes to their teenagers' growth, if they focus on their nutrition. So they can still dream tall. So very apt is high hopes and tall dreams. So do hope for your teenagers to grow taller, but act on it by providing them adequate nutritious meals. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Tiaga. So once again, to all of you who have joined us here on a Sunday, we would like to thank you. And we also have the next forum, which will be coming up. And this time around, we will be talking about a different topic this time. It is going to be on healthy bodies, happy kids. And it will be on parenting tips for growth, health, and happiness, featuring another two of our IMFET experts. And this will be taking place on the 13th of July on Thursday next week. So in order for you to join in, you could scan this QR code, or you could also visit the page at the Malaysian Pediatric Association Facebook page to learn more. And of course, share it over with your colleagues, your friends, your family, because all of these topics that we're covering here today, it is very beneficial. And some of you would want a better understanding out of it. So join into the forum, scan over, and participate in, because it is on the 13th of July, Thursday, from 8 to 9 p.m. And once again, before we bid farewell, we hope that we could also hear it from you, and we want to hear your feedback as well on today's webinar. All right, so I would appreciate for you to go over and send in your votes over, or any of your suggestions via Zoom as well as Slido. Okay, we would like to hear it from you. That is where the code is. You just have to scan it and let us know your feedback. At least we could improve on the next few forum sessions that we are about to have. And that's not it, because not just the feedback forms and the feedbacks we want to hear from you, but we also have our contests. Right. So for this week's contest, we will be contacting the winners very soon. All right. And this will be via email, and perhaps in about a week's time. And for the next upcoming session, you would also be able to win yourself an RM50 ringgit worth of your Touch and Go e-wallet pin reload. And it's very easy, very straightforward. Okay, all you have to do is just visit us over at the MPA Facebook event page. Click over onto the icon that says that you are going, and then share it over to your family and friends and tell us why exactly they should be attending this. And don't forget to hashtag the Growth Watch Month. Okay, so you could scan the QR code onto your screen and join us on the next contest. All right, so I hope all of you have enjoyed yourself on this platform. And thank you once again to our experts for your time. We truly enjoyed the discussion that we had. And of course, to all of your parents, we hope to see you in the next forum. That's it today from me. I am Jalisa Sanjana, signing off. See you.
Thank you.